Science tells us that there's a predictable gap between what people say they want to do and what they actually do. This is called the intention action gap, and it's not because people are lazy or undisciplined. They're failing because the brain defaults for efficiency, not aspiration. Think about it. You set a goal, you plan it beautifully, then life happens. Stress, fatigue, interruptions. And suddenly the version of you that made the plan is gone. And the real you is like, nope, we're not gonna do that. So now that you know that it's not a personal flaw, let's flip it and see what are the best science-backed ways to follow through on doing what you say you're going to do. No hype, no pretend motivation, no discipline cosplay, just real psychology. And if we've never met before, hi, my name is Dr. Jamie. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and behavioral scientist who focuses on high performance without sacrificing your mental health. That means that this video is full of nerdy science as well as practical, actionable steps to help you become more consistent and actually follow through. First, it's nice to understand why this is happening in the first place. A huge meta-analysis, that's a study of studies, looked at 422 different studies and found that wanting to do something only predicted actually doing that thing 28% of the time. That's right, I said 28% of the time. And here's the reason why. The part of your brain that likes to think, dream, and plan is totally different than the part of your brain that actually needs to consistently execute that plan. And since your brain uses a lot of resources, something like 20% of all of your body's energy expenditure, your brain tries to conserve energy whenever possible. It does that by running on autopilot a lot of the time, falling back on routines, and finding the path of least resistance. And sadly, it gets even worse if you're a high achiever in this modern world. Stress reduces functioning in your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's in charge of keeping you on track. A lot of high achievers struggle with fatigue, which also impacts your ability to follow through. Feelings of emotional overwhelm also tend to push you into your default pathways or into your default behaviors. So instead of doing what you want to do, you end up doing what you've always done. We're not even done yet. On top of those physiological processes, we also have two specific cognitive biases or glitches in the way that humans tend to think that also make it really difficult for us to commit to what we said we were going to do. First, your brain prefers ease and comfort right now to the possibility of something greater in the future. It's almost like your brain says, well, one in the hand is safer than two in the bush. So your plans might seem really lovely and helpful to Jamie in the future, but Jamie today needs to be cuddled up under the blankets. The second glitch in the way that we think is our general misunderstanding of how we're going to feel or what we're going to want in the future. We are notorious for off-putting hard work and effort to our future selves. Future Jamie, for some reason, is going to be really awesome at getting to the gym. She's going to read 3 books while she's on vacation, and she's definitely going to be flossing every day of the week. Today, Jamie, she's like not so great. You can totally see it all around YouTube this time of year, where people swear that they're going to be a totally different person in just 30 days. But that is tomorrow's problem. The thing is, that might actually work in the short run, but follow through isn't just about willpower and motivation. What actually works is knowing how you're getting in your own way and developing the set of science-backed tools to clear the path. The easiest way to follow through on what you say you're going to do is to act consistent with who you think you are. If you think that you are someone who follows through, that becomes an identity, not just a passing trait. But you can't fake this. You have to build it. That's where the self-trust loop comes in. The self-trust loop starts with a commitment. This includes getting real specific with a time, a date, a location. The more specific, the better. Then there's the follow-through. You get a little hit of dopamine. Yay! And more importantly, you start gathering up evidence that you are the type of person who follows through on their commitments. Each piece of evidence strengthens your identity as someone who follows through on their commitments. And that's how future follow-through becomes even easier. So you might make the same commitment again, or even a slightly larger commitment. You follow through, you get that hit of dopamine, you gather additional evidence. Your identity as a person who actually follows through becomes stronger and stronger. You get even more encouraged. You might commit to more things. And that's the loop. It starts with your first, very specific commitment. When you decide what you're doing, when you're doing it, where you're doing it, the outfit that you're wearing when you're making it happen, you remove all the decision making for future you. You're removing decisions left and right, making it easier for future you. You know, that person that you can't trust to do anything just yet. You're doing the hard work now so that that person gets to take it easier. Because we don't even know her. They don't have to plan it out. They don't have to negotiate. They could just trust the you who made the plan. Now, we know that planning alone only predicts 28% of action. So let's get started on stacking the deck in our favor. Doing this next step will make it 2 to 3 times more likely that you'll actually engage in the behavior that you've planned. It's great that you know all of the logistics of when, where, and why you're doing your thing. But let's take it a step further and actually schedule it into our calendar. Let's also make an external commitment and tell someone that you're going to be engaging in that specific action. Writing it down and telling someone increases your internal commitment to following through on that action. And it also provides a little bit of external accountability and external reinforcement, since we tend to be social creatures that like to be viewed favorably by others. Gathering up all of those specifics and actually putting that into your calendar is what's known as implementation intentions, and that increases the likelihood that you'll engage in a behavior threefold. Part of the reason why that works is that scheduling decreases resistance for future you. It also decreases the amount of effort it takes to think through what you should be doing when, and it makes that behavior less effortful and more automatic. This next science-based strategy is highly underutilized but much beloved by behavioral scientists: decision architecture and environmental design. Super fancy language for saying that as adults, we have an unusually high amount of control on how we set up our physical environment. If we set that up just right, we can make it super easy for ourselves to do the right thing, or super hard for us to do the things that we're trying to stop. You have control over your environment, so use it. Lay out your gym clothes every morning. Make it super easy for you to get dressed in the dark. Put your planner on your pillow. Make it super easy for you to plan your next day. Pre-write your top 3 tasks every day. Make it super easy for you to get started. Bonus tip: when you write something down, it opens up a cognitive loop and it'll prime your brain to get started or re-engage with that task when you actually get to it. If you like that bonus tip, or if you've gotten any benefits from the rest of this video, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to this channel. You can do it by just tapping very gently on the subscribe button down below. Tap it super gently. I'll wait. All right, did you do it? Let's move on to the next tip. Do you see how easy it was to tap on that subscribe button because it's located right down below? That's the level of easy you're striving for when you're setting up your future self for success. Now, so many people that I work with have an issue with understanding this concept of smallest viable win. A lot of us on this channel are trying to do some big things, so our commitments need to be broken down into individual specific tasks. I describe a task as anything that you can do in one sitting. Now, what you can do in one sitting varies depending on the context. For example, if I'm looking at clearing out my email, that's a specific task at work because I can do that in one sitting. But if I was going to try to clear out my personal inbox full of 15 years of advertisements that I've signed up for, it's going to take me weeks. So clearing out my email is actually a mini project and not really a specific task. It's important that you break down your commitments into the smallest action item that you can complete within a reasonable amount of time. That's going to help you build what's called micro wins. Like we discussed earlier, every time you have a small win, you have a little boost of dopamine. Dopamine is also known as the motivation neurotransmitter. So if you continue to get little spurts of dopamine because you're getting all of these micro wins by doing these tiny tasks, you're going to start building that confidence and evidence that you're a person that gets shit done. Identity shift? Check. If you can master the art of getting your commitments down into their smallest viable win, you'll become the type of person that actually does what they say they'll do. Instead of saying, I'll write my next book chapter, consider outlining the next 3 bullet points for the chapter. Instead of committing to an entire wardrobe declutter, commit to working through your leggings this weekend. Get your commitments down to the smallest first task and gather up those wins. Are you ready for a hard one? Your in-the-moment feelings about your commitments are not facts. Most broken commitments aren't about a lack of knowledge of how to get it done or even a lack of time to do them. They're about emotional avoidance. It feels gross. I'm not motivated. It feels uncomfortable right now. I'd rather not. Your thoughts and feelings are not above impeachment. In fact, challenging your thoughts and feelings is central to a therapeutic technique called cognitive reappraisal, and it tends to work equally well on people that are working with behavioral health issues and high performers that are trying to optimize their output. When you start to feel that resistance in your body or in your thinking process, try this. Look at it. Acknowledge it and say to yourself, wow, I'm about to try something new and my body is getting ready for that. Let's go. You don't need to interpret your thoughts and feelings as barriers to taking action. In fact, most people think that they need motivation in order to act, but motivation actually follows action rather than the reverse. When you engage in a behavior, you're allowing yourself to develop those micro wins that are going to increase your motivation to sustain that behavior in the future. See, as humans, we tend to like to do things that we're good at, and in order to get good at something, you actually need to do it a few times. So once you get started, it's easier for you to keep going. You just gotta take that first step. And since it's December and you've stayed this long, I'm gonna give you a step-by-step process on how you could actually take those first steps. All right, come in close. Start by making fewer commitments. Remember way back in the beginning of the video when I told you the relationship between overwhelm and actually getting things done? The more things that you have on your plate, the higher the possibility for emotional overwhelm, the less likely you are to follow through on your commitments. So let's be choosy about the amount of commitments that we're making. The sweet spot in the science seems to be 1 to 3 large achievements, and if you stay within this range, you increase the likelihood that you'll actually follow through. Break everything down into the smallest viable win. Make sure that you're scheduling yourself to do tasks rather than larger projects. And when you're scheduling in those tasks, make sure that you're actually physically writing them down or entering them into the calendar. Look at what's around those tasks and ask yourself if you're going to be in the right energy state to actually accomplish your commitments. Write down as much information as possible. Not just when you're going to do it, where you're going to do it, who you're going to do it with, how you're going to style your hair, anything to decrease the decision-making of future you. It's all well and good to think that you're internally gathering up your wins to build your identity as someone who follows through. But it's even better to have an external display of how you're kicking ass and taking names. That's called a tracking system, and I like using trackers on Notion or in my paper journal as a visual representation of my wins. Bonus tip, you also get a slight hit of dopamine when you check things off or when you see long strings of things that you've checked off because you're doing things day after day. Finally, it helps to have some sort of weekly review. This is a time when you can take a purposeful pause and adjust what's not working, refine your strategies, and keep going. The weekly review and reflection practice is just part of a larger reflection practice that I recommend to my clients and I use personally. If you're interested in my entire review, reflect, and reset system, check out this video right here. As you move forward with becoming the type of person who follows through on their commitments, try to remember it's not about forcing discipline or waiting for motivation. It's about working with your brain, not against it. Every small follow-through teaches your brain, I'm someone that you can rely on. As that evidence compounds, your self-trust and self-efficacy will naturally improve. Start small, stack evidence, track regularly. That's how follow-through becomes almost automatic. If you've made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching all the way through. It really helps out this channel. And if you're still here, drop a fun emoji in the comment section down below. I try to respond to all of the comments, and think about checking out this video that YouTube thinks you'll like.